Hello, friends. This is John Klein III of episode 116 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, the podcast. And today we're going to review Fall of the House of X issue 3. So let's get to it. So this is written by Jerry Duggan. Artists are Lucas Warnick and Jethro Morales. Color artist is Brian Valenza. Letter VC's Travis Lantham. Design Tom Muir and Jay Bowen. And there was a slew of variant covers. Associate editor Lauren Amaro, editor Jordan D. White, and C.B. Sabowski, editor-in-chief. Our cast is going to be Cyclops, Magic, which I love those two whenever they pal around. Apocalypse, Manifold, Shadowgate, Lynch, nope, Think, Emma Frost, Rogue, Juggernaut, Firestar, Coca-Cola, Dr. Statius, Dr. Aaliyah Gregor, who always wanted to call Mick Gregor, and Nimrod. And the issue opens up with Juggernaut pulling Coca-Cola, which is just a giant tree at this point. It's said that nothing can stop the Juggernaut, but that's not true, especially when a harpoon made of the discarded adamantium skeleton weapon X maims you. And then you just see Juggernaut being held down. The mutants had been losing since the Hellfire Gala. Many were dead. The rest were scattered. An insurrectionist team of X-Men were leading the rebellion against Orchis. The battle to liberate Earth was underway, and it could be going better. Coca-Cola, the living island, was surrounded by enemies. Mutantdom was on the cusp of losing everything. The humans in Orchis were feeling confident, flying around in repurposed shield equipment. The meat puppets had no idea they'd already been sold out by the artificial intelligence in the organization. And then some goons come down, like, blasting at Juggernaut, who, like, takes all the hits for Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola just has this painful look on his face, which makes me feel sad. And then Juggernaut just decides, like, well, I gotta kill these people. Juggernaut had survived the attack that killed nearly all his X-Men teammates, and what didn't kill him made him angrier. Juggernaut swore to protect Coca-Cola until reinforcements arrived. He would succeed or join the rest of his X-Men teammates in death. At that moment, half a war away, Cyclops was finally escaping the clutches of Orchis with their head of R&D, Dr. Aaliyah Gregor. And Cyclops is holding her hand, which you think would be the other way around, where she can see and he can't. So, like, maybe she should guide? Because he's not, like, going to a secret location. He's just going through stairs. And he confirms that he could have broken out at any time he wanted, but, he's like, well, I've been waiting. And then two more goons show up, and he just blasts through his eye stitches finally with a Zark. And so those guys are dead. And then Scott says, "You and I have almost everything in common. May I ask you a question, McGregor?" Or Dr. Gregor. I know it's causing some issues about, like, they don't have that much background, but I think he means, like, overall DNA style. Like, they're both human. Just one of them has access to a punch dimension. And their enemies the same when it's not her goons. And then we get Ilyana showing up with a "You're never trapped" when Magic's around. "Hiya, Psych. I brought you a ruby quartz visor, and just in time because maybe you'd be surprised to see who you're hanging out with." And she's in a great gold outfit, which we'll get into what's next for the X-Men at the end of the episode. Catch, which I should have tried a Russian accent, but why butcher? And then Scott finally is powered up. And Ileana says, "If it needs doing, then it will be done." You get a recap page. Oh, yeah, which I probably should read. When mankind emerged from years of oppression and bigotry by founding Krakoa, their own sovereign nation, humans were scared. Most notably, secret anti-mutant organization Orchis has now publicly declared their intent to wipe out all mutants off the face of the earth forever. Of course, the humans in the organization had no idea the artificial intelligences that worked for them have also been biding their time. Stark Sentinels have been deployed around the world to carry out Orchis' decree as the war for the mutant kind's existence rages on. Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and Colossus launch an unsuccessful assassination and rescue mission on the Orchis space station that resulted in Dr. Statius slipping through their fingers and their double agent, Firestar, going missing. But with Polaris's help, they were able to cripple the station and deal a blow to Orcus's resources. Meanwhile, Juggernaut continues to try and protect the physical. Yeah, I should have read this first. Physical magnification of Coca-Cola from Orcus's forces. His would-be rescuers Rogue and Gambit having gone off mission to retrieve an ally previously hidden by Destiny elsewhere. Cyclops was saved from execution by the most unexpected ally, Dr. Alia Gregor, one of Orcus's top scientists. The planet Araco and Apocalypse, or is gathering all of Araco together. We see Wolf, who makes a reference to how Shadowcape made him an X-Man back in X-Men Volume 6, Issue 25, right before she slaughters a bunch of Orcus goons. And so he's just like, we're in this. So it's nice to see that pay off. And with a boom, Rogue, Gambit, and Manifold are together in a giant ship, and they're pretty much going to leave Mars vacant as they all head to Earth, which I know has some people concerned that Oracle is going to be over with, but um, and it probably is, but maybe it just peacefully exists out there. And the universe delivered as Sword Station 2 appeared in orbit around Earth next to its twin. And then the two, so Station 2 and Peak are making a giant X in the sky. And we see all these characters with like big old, like, I don't know, like classic 80s cartoons where all you need is a Mysterio dome over your head and all of a sudden you can exist in space. Hey, Bay's here. Doug, Douglas Ramsey's wife. And they're just existing in space, so it doesn't seem wise to be. So they're just falling from space to Earth? As the mutant liberals fell once more into Earth's gravity, Rogan had a good thought for her mother, Destiny, who told her there would be a day like this. She heard Destiny clear as day, as though they were in the same room. We get Destiny's talking about the vision she's seen of the X in the sky and all this other stuff. And then we finally get, and I have to say, this is a huge step up from issues 1 and 2, and I'm sure it's because Shadowcate's in it, hanging out with Emma, and then Magic's hanging out with Cyclops. So it's like, all my favorite characters doing my favorite things. So it's like, yeah, I'm willing to forgive, slights the issue is gonna have, because I got my Shadowcate not just making an appearance here or there, but actually in it. And so we see one of the ships come down. Stark is giving Kate and Emma whereabouts of where Dr. Statius is, and with a message from Firestar. And Kate's like, rerouting us now. And Emma thanks Anthony. The middle of nowhere, Dr. Statius was confident Orcus would win, but he had plans in case they didn't. Once he boarded that private plane, Dr. Statius would cease to exist for a few years, and this aspect of Sinister would metastasize into something worse. You're not going anywhere, Stasis. Oh my, it's the porcelain's trumpet and her lunatic ninja. Catherine? With pleasure. You better pray that Firestar's alive. And she just like slices Stasis, who has like a helmet on for some reason. He's like, hark, or you'll beg for death. And she's just taking him piece by piece. Unhand me! If you so much as lay a finger on me, you would never see Firestar alive again. I've hidden her away as insurance against the exact scenario. I have the finest side blocker implanted in my head, and he like double taps his head. Oh, you don't mean this side blocker, which is an awesome like 2-panel sequence. I just phased from your head when I knocked your helmet off, do you? Emma? No, wait. And Emma just goes into his mind. She immediately gives Sync Firestar's whereabouts. And so he's attacking goons. He finds her in her own pod and rescues her. And then Emma does a psychic torture of Statius. I always want to say status, but I guess Statius makes as much sense. It makes him relive all of his fears of what mutants could possibly do, which is like Wolverine slashing into him, Cyclops, and by Wolverine I mean Logan, Scott blasting his helmet off, Kate phasing her arm through his chest, Colossus squeezing his head, Magneto separating his head. So he's pretty much weakened. And she's giving him a heart attack. If we don't do Dracula proper, we deserve whatever happens to us when he does return. Are you suddenly suggesting I kill him in that repeatedly? And all of a sudden we see like Firestar comes in. So like Emma wrecked his brain and now Firestar's burning the rest of the corpse. So we should be done with this version of Sinister. Or Nathaniel Excess, I suppose. Which should then also solve the Dominion problem, which there's still the magic excess, the mutant excess that we know, and then Mother Righteous. And we get this very tender moment of Emma thanking her, and Emma even wipes a tear from Firestar's face and says, "You did us all proud and paid the hero's price." And I just like the physical touch because poor Firestar during this era has, or not era, but this fall of X has had to betray the team, had to hear people say horrible things to her, even if they were in on the plot, they still had to say horrible things. And, I imagine she just didn't allow herself to get close to anyone. And so, that physical touch is, right, goes a long way. And I think we probably retired the whole butter rum, like justice for butter rum now, too. We can't reference Mystique throwing a baby over the waterfall anymore. And I think we can finally let that stuff go as well. And then Magic has teleported Scott and Gregor to the moon. You sure you want me to leave you two here alone, boss? I need to do this. Tell Emma to keep an ear out for me. Roger. I've been asked to help hunt for Director Devo, who I don't recognize that. And Jukebox Jordan give us a fun editor note saying, in X-Men 33 on sale in 3 weeks. And with that, Ileana disappears, where it's like, shoot, I really wish she had stuck around. Gregor references that she's noticed they were losing a lot of materials and they were disappearing mysteriously. And if he's ever heard of Sentinel City. And then she opens the door and there's Nimrod, who has the personality of her dead husband inside his head, but also mixed with the Nimrod programming because he's never just like, oh, hey, my dear wife. Yeah, even here he references her as Dr. Gregor. And so she's trying to confront him. And Scott's like, Dr. Gregor, that thing's not your husband. And Nimrod's like, I don't want to ever lie to you, so I'm doing this earlier than expected. And with a gentle touch on her face, which I guess is a nice, uh, what's the fancy word for doing the opposite? But he cracks her neck in half, spinning her neck all the way around, which is like, all right, unnecessary. And Scott's like, you psycho! And like, Optic blasts him, which he doesn't seem like he hurt him that hard. And then from the moon's surface, we see Sentinel City is not an outpost or mine. It's a tool for sterilizing this hellish planet once and for all. Next, the Earth shall burn. And then we get a data page with Director Devo saying, Orcus is the tip of the spear in the defense of mankind. And Fei Long says, Orcus is how I will have my revenge. And Dr. Stacia says, Orcus is simply a ladder for me to ascend. I guess this is all their opinions. And Marduk's like, Orcus is just another playground. And Mariah X says, Orcus is something I've not tried before. And Nimrod ends, Orcus, a shiny bubble that was flashed in front of fleshy eyes. It was used to inject simple ideas into small minds across Earth. Man and mutant killed each other, and almost none of them looked at our larger equation. So it's a weird data page to end on. And so we have Miss Marvel Mutant Menace 1, X-Men 32 that I adored, X-Men Dead X-Men 3, Fall of the House of X 3, Wolverine 45. Um oh yeah, and then this thing says Resurrection Magneto 3 this Wednesday, X-Men Forever 1. That oh yeah, so two comics. So I doubt Kate is in either of those, but if she is, we will, and if she has a speaking part, we'll review them. If not, we do a back issue or something. Oh, actually, you know what? X-Men 97 is coming out. I'm hoping I can make Walker, not make, but I can schedule Walker D to do reviews of those two episodes. Probably do one episode each, I imagine. But we'll see what the length of it is. But I'm also envisioning a scenario where we only watch one episode, and he's like, "Well, I'm done." Like, all right. And then what other comics came out this week? Oh yeah, or this last week. So Spider-Gwen Smash 4, which had plenty of X-Men content with Dazzler, her sister, Voltress, something like that, right? Um, Pixie was in there, and Black Widow's there. There was another mutant. Pixie, Dazzler, Mortress. And Lila Cheney, of course. Pretty good issue. Um, is here Power Pack Into the Storm 3. I really enjoyed the Franklin and Storm portions, and the Power Pack themselves were, well, occupied the Brood, who I despise. And then also the horse people that gave him their powers. So I really like the Storm part. And they reference Kitty Pryde and Wolverine quite a bit. And so I'm really hoping Kitty shows up eventually in it. Dead X-Men 3, which I'm not enjoying nearly as much as I did the first issue. I mean, first issue had Lockheed as captain of the Starjammers, so always going to be huge for me. But so I don't know. They're trying to do stuff. I feel like Dead X-Men is going to be summarized in Rise of the Powers of X, but the Powers of X 2 did a great job of incorporating Dead X-Men 2 into the story. So it's like, all right, it matters. I just wish it had more team dynamics to it. Um, I mean, it just feels like Exiles, but instead of various universe ones, it's our mutants in other timelines and such. Where it's like, all right, that seems like a way to work. Ultimate Black Panther 2 ends with Storm, um, with Black Panther believing that she's the woman of light that he's supposed to have a child with, but he's married. So, and I'm not cool with affairs. So I guess one of my problems I had a Superstore where it's like, I'm not gonna ship a dude and a married woman. Like either you divorce her or I don't know. I'm not for cheating, so I'm just like, no, wait, you end that, and then we will go from there. What if Venom, which I didn't even read, but it has Wolverine on the cover with a symbiote, so you know in your heart if that's for you or not. And then let's confirm what comes out next week. And by next week, I mean this Wednesday, which is Invincible Iron Man 16, so that should be great. um, Started off good. Oh yeah, Resurrection of Magneto 3. So it should be fun. I'm hoping there's at least a couple dialogue scenes that I can adapt into another video, which appreciate everyone watching that on Jacko SII. Um, it was fun trying to adapt it, but also using, not plagiarizing or anything. But it's been a pretty good series, so I've been appreciating that. Wolverine Manaport Knights 2. So we'll see if it's purely a Wolverine, and that's by Claremont and Salazar. But I believe, right, the first issue had what mutants were in there? Jubilee and Psylocke? Betsy? And so it'd be interesting to see if Manapur Knights 2 has just purely Logan, Black Widow, and Cap. Night Thrasher 2, we see if there's any more new Warriors content. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver 2. X-Men Forever 1, which is going to be about Jean Grey by Gillian and Marciska. Which I don't know. I wish I was liking Rise of the Powers of X more, but it just I'm not there with Dominions and I don't know. I, I'm just not clicking with it. Web of Spider-Man 1's getting relaunched, which Buddy Greg and I like back in the day we would do a bunch like adjectives off where I don't know how it just always be like, like, oh man, that's fantastic, and oh, that's amazing, and then it's like, oh, and well, eventually it was like a race to say who, like, which one would say web of, and then we just smile and grin. So that's the comic. So yeah, I'm not. I mean, now that Emma and Kate are together, maybe Kate would be an invincible Iron Man 16, and it's Duggan, who I've been really liking his take on Kate Pride. Um, So yeah, that's next week's or this week's comics. And so let's get into the big news of the week, which was Marvel's X-Men panel at SXSW 2024. Um, which I meant to stop at. I always see it was 2024. But if you want to go to the blog, which is shadowandflameofmagic.com, that started this whole enterprise, Marvel released a trailer for the new, and they're calling it From the Ashes, which still bugs me because that's such a sacred Paul Smith like trade and Bob Wyatt kick, of course. And then thanks to laughingplace.com, a Twitter account that followed pretty much every single thing we wanted. Like they provided art, they provided descriptions. Pretty much if someone said a sentence, that was a tweet. And that was on what day? Oh, March 14th. And so we're going to get three. And so they promoted three titles. It's going to be Uncanny X-Men with Gail. Oh, let me blow them. Gail Simone. So she's clearly the head writer of the X Office. David Marquez, who is no stranger to the X-Men. And this is Rogue's team that's going to take place in Louisiana with husband Gambit, um, brother Nightcrawler, good buddy Logan, and Jubilee, which people have been pointing out about how she's like showing her midriff and thighs and how that's not really Jubilee but a meltdown or Boom Boom. But I met her as an X-Force member called Meltdown, so she's always Meltdown to me. Then there's X-Men by current, I don't know, adoring writer Jed McKay, who's writing the Avengers right now and has the big Blood Hunt crossover coming up soon. Magic's getting a one shot in, and probably be the only comic I read of that crossover. Ryan Stegman's the artist, who's also no stranger to the X Office. Um, so it's Cyclops, who looks like he's 20 here, but that's just how Stegman draws him. 70s Beast, Magic, who I wish I had said second. So Scott and Ileana together, perfect combo. Uh, Psylocke, Kawan, Juggernaut with a big old black outfit and with a big old red X on his helmet, which I guess is for when you see him charging at you, you know where he's gonna hit you. Magneto, who's in a chair. Oya, who's now called Temper, who I do not love that name. Um, and then Quentin Quire, who I'm also not the biggest fan of. But and that one's going to be my second favorite of these titles because I love Gail Simone, but besides Nightcrawler, that team is like, I can miss it. I mean, I'll probably read it, but we're not going to do episodes about it. Whereas at least these are going to be, and ideally there'll be one each a week, right? And then we get my favorite title, Exceptional X-Men by Eve L. Ewing, no relation, and Carmen Carnero, who I follow on Twitter and Instagram now. And she's been giving us some promo art, which has like been pretty fun. Which Kate is in her X-Men Evolution era outfit, which is a lot easier way to describe it than, hey, it's her yellow outfit but blue. Where it's like, no, no, it's very X-Men Evolution coded. And Emma is on some type of like, I don't know, white raft, which I can only imagine when she comes to Fortnite, this will be her glider. Um, and then they have three new mutants, but not new mutants. Melee, Bronze, and Axel. And pretty much, I should have mentioned, Scott's team takes place in Alaska. And then Kate is a Bartista, um, which I guess she's putting those old bartender day skills to use. And then I guess she needs the to like she comes across these three mutants and tries to help them out. And so this team takes place in Illinois, which I sort of like the idea of the three teams being nowhere near each other. And maybe that's also supposed to be new user friendly. Like, hey, find the cast that appeals to you and stick to that. Like, there won't be that many crossovers, which I can only imagine we're either going to get crossovers at issue 6 or issue 12. But the very original Krakoan series has pretty much lasted like 22, 24 issues. I mean, the pandemic screwed up much of publishing, but um, I know I really enjoy it. So this is going to be by far my favorite, and I can only imagine. My guess is that the first issues on end with her being like, "I need to work with Emma," and then they're together again. So, because I guess there's some controversy about how Kate, who's still going by Kate, is like just taking a break from mutantdom, and so it's like, well, clearly that break's going to be all of 2 pages, and then she's going to be united with them. And so our very first taste of this team or this era is going to be at the back of X-Men 35, which is unofficial or retroactively we considered Uncanny X-Men 700, which I don't know why they don't just screw the 35 and just make it Uncanny 700. That would have made some, you know, because they made a big point in the Krakoan age of being like, there is no Uncanny. This is um, it's just X-Men. So it's like, yeah, so then it's weird to be like, well, actually, all these issues have been uncanny. Like, have they? Because I feel like that's not what the title has said. Like, I've definitely been calling it X-Men Volume 6, 32, and not Uncanny X-Men, Legacy number 698. Let's see, what else did I write about? Oh yeah, I got those kids, correct. And Melee looks very rogue coded to me, but without that Cajun spice. And Eve Ewing apparently has a Champions run people have been really recommending me to read, and a Black Panther run she's currently on, and she has very nice poetry. So I'm like, oh, I should look into that. And so this is nice to see this X-Men uniform that we saw in Women of Marvel that came out last month. And so there's X-Men 35 that gets an epilogue, and then there's going to be the Free Comic Book Day comic. That also deals with the blood hunt, and I guess reverse side will be the Fall from Ashes event before these all come out in July. And then they reveal what else is coming. Because I was like, well, and I guess this is wrong, and I should quote tweet my tweet about like, how many titles do you think it will be? Like 5 maybe? Which I was thinking like maybe 3 team titles and 2 solos or a rotating mini series. But instead, we got everything coming out. So we have Phoenix, Storm, and Wolverine being the solo titles, which I love the classic logos being used again. And then also X Factor and X Force are 2 teams with their logos being reused. And hopefully these are where the rest of the mutants can be shown up. And hopefully most of the A team is being used, the A-listers, but there's quite a few not used. And and for diversity purposes, these teams aren't that diverse. Kate's new team will be, and then we also have NYX, which I've questioned that because you think it would just be considered District X, because I always associate NYX with Joe Quesada's. It was the miniseries that gave us Laura Kinney X-23 in the Marvel Universe after her X-Men Evolution debut, and then Joe Quesada, in his infinite wisdom, decided to turn her into a sex worker, which, is a job and people do it. So, sure. But also, he had his fingers on the keyboard and made that decision too. So it's like, you could have not done that. So maybe this would be a nice, reclaiming the name. I'm also sure NYX needs to be like New Mutants needs to be used every like 6 years or so, or they lose the copyright to it. Which, I mean, Melee, Temper, and Bronze are also names. I'm sure the copyright editor was like, you can't make up any other ones. Oh, and I also made this fun, well, fun, uh, clever reference to how three titles all take place in different states, and then if NYX is the New York title, then is X Factor gonna be um the West Coast title, and then X Force is maybe the road title? But and how like like back in the day, Avengers Initiative tried to do this with Arizona, like all the 50 states, but barely did any mini series per state. So I was like, it'd be nice if there was an Arizona team or my adopted state, Montana. But so we got some stuff coming out. Oh yeah, and the trailer hints at Jubilee doing a mutant hand gesture that I still have the hardest time doing, where you make an M with your hand, which I'm doing for you right now, but you can't see this, dear listener. And then there's a response one that's like a Spider-Man web shooter, but you do it where your fingers are pointing down. Go to the blog and you'll see it as like the last image. Or check out that trailer. And then the trailer ends with Prisoner X in the Xavier Institute. The school is being rebuilt. And I can only imagine the prisoner is Xavier in his house. Like his house is now a prison. Oh, second to last images. I just reposted the logos with the creative teams. But yeah, so that is the comic that came out last week. Fall of the X House of X 3. Talk about what's coming out next week and then what's coming out this summer. So yeah, it was a pretty big week, everybody. Well, thanks so much for listening, and I will talk to you next time. And my Twitter account was JackoSII, and the blogs is on Instagram and Twitter at SNFWM. I'm always bad about promoting those two. And I will talk to you next time, and please ask a friend to listen as we try to keep growing. All right, everyone, bye.